Okay, time for the Bitcoin miners update here, and we're going to start with CleanSpark. And they had a great Monday, and this is because Bitcoin has been rallying so far, but will it hold on? Let's find out. So, CleanSpark is first on the weekly chart. I have my GAN pulled up here from the COVID low of 2020, and we can see that the market symmetry is pretty spectacular, especially with this blue level right here. Right after it successfully went back down to the orange here and was support for once, twice, three times, four times, it just shot up to the blue level, and we can see that it is now support. Right, the blue level is now support. It never even got back down to the 1380 again. It did one time back in the week of April 15th, 2024, but it never made it back again. And now, if we add the Ichimoku on, we can see that it is actually trying to close the week above the conversion line, right? It is only Monday, so this could just turn into a wick and could come back down, depending on Bitcoin, right? But if this weekly candle closes back above this conversion line, which is currently at 1744, then it's got a clear shot up to this green arc up above here. And that kind of sits around $28 for CleanSpark. And then the next arc sits around 36, and then all the way up here there is the next level, which sits around $52. So that would be the next level. That would be the next target for the longer term. The shorter term would be around $28, $27 in that range. But we need to see a strong weekly close, right? Because if you look back on the conversion line, you can see that it hasn't really closed a weekly candle above it since the high, right? Since the high back here in March. So this is very important this week, so we need to watch that. Otherwise, it could just turn into resistance, right? And if we add on the Bollinger Bands here, we can see it still on the weekly chart has room to go, right? It has room to go, and it's really narrow, right? It's squeezing right now. It's also above the 20-week moving average, but there is room to go up to this area, right? The 2050s before it starts to really expand. And you can see a little bit that it is starting to expand a little bit down here, but it's not enough. It's still very tight. So if we can get this continuation rally, then it'll just continue higher and higher, which will make this Bollinger Band squeeze like we've seen down here in the past, right? And if we take that off and we just put on the SMAs, we can see that they're still way down here. So there's really no need for it to come back and retest it because this blue level is holding very nicely, right? So all in all, this is turning out to be a very nice looking bull flag for CLSK. And it looks like there could be time. It could be time for it to continue higher and higher towards 27. So we'll have to wait till Friday to see how this week closes. But so far, so good. And Mara held its support very well as well. It actually held that blue line for a long time. Went back down to the arcs, back up to the blue. But the blue level here was very important, which really puts the green level back on the table here, also around $52, right? The same thing as CleanSpark, right? In the shorter term, because it's closer to the green level than CleanSpark was on its chart, right? So we can see that it did successfully test this angle too back here in April, and it's been a very important support angle for a long time. So would it possibly come back down to retest it? I don't think so, and that's mainly because if you put on the Ichimoku here and we put on some moving averages here, we can see the confluence right there. We'll zoom in, right? And I mentioned this right here, is like the 200-week moving average is at 1920. And I said last week, I said that Mara might not go below 19 because it essentially is a big support zone. And the confluence of the cloud right here, the conversion line, and the 200-week was enough for it to hold last week. And sure enough, the low last week was 1878, which is basically close to that $19, right? So now what do we see price doing? Well, it's moving up and it's going above the baseline, which is really positive for a continuation higher. But let's not forget, it is still only Monday. I don't want this to turn into a wick and close back below, because closing back below would lead to maybe more consolidation before a breakout, right? And the last time we saw it above the baseline was right here in March. And the last time we saw it above both the conversion line and the baseline was back here in February of 2024. So if this week can close back above the baseline, then it's got a good shot to continue higher to the arc up here in the 40s, and then ultimately a 52 target before some major resistance happens, right? So this chart is also looking really good. It's got a nice 18% week so far, and just need to see a weekly candle close above this level. And next is RIOT. And even RIOT had a really, really good day, right? And it's still, despite it's up 17% today, it's still my least favorite miner. And I'm going to show you why when I add more confluences. But we can see how important that blue level is going across, right? We can see that it actually made it up to the green level up here before in the past. But now it's at resistance, right? We have the resistance of that blue level coming up. Then we have more resistance of that arc coming up. So the blue level sits around 1230, right? But what do we see right now, right? We see when we add the Ichimoku on right here and the SMA, we can see two things that are standing out. So it finally got back above the conversion line right here. It finally got back above the 100-week moving average, but it's running into some resistance right here with the 50-week moving average. So you notice like on CleanSpark and Mara, how they are above all these averages, right? And they're above the cloud, they're above everything, and they're almost 100% bullish. And the reason why this is not my favorite or my least favorite is because we have the resistance of the 50-week. Then we have the resistance right here at 1230 of that blue horizontal line. Then we have the bottom of the cloud, then the conversion line, then the arc, then the 200-week, and so on and so forth, right? So it's not just clear skies ahead for RIOT, right? It's going to take maybe some time to surpass one level at a time. And it already surpassed the first level right here with the 100-week and the conversion line, right? So opening that weekly candle above this conversion line and 100-week was a good first step to go higher and higher. But the second step is closing a weekly candle above this 50-week moving average, which currently sits at 1151. And price did close at 1148 today. So we can see this wick above that it still is obvious resistance. So that's the next level, then the blue level, the blue horizontal line, then the cloud, then the baseline, then the top of the cloud and the arc, right? So you get my gist of why it's my least favorite. I like charts that have clear skies ahead, and this does not have clear skies ahead yet. So even though it had 17% today, it still is going to face some challenges in the near future based off of the resistance of this chart. And next we have CIFR mining, CIFR, and we can see that this orange level was a big resistance level. And what just happened? Well, it opened the week a little bit below, but now it exploded up 27.78% so far. This is explosive, right? Really explosive. And now it looks like it could have room to go to the top of the angle here, which has been important. Could be around high sixes or low sevens, right? Depending on time. But what I mean by have clear skies ahead, like I said with RIOT does not, well, we can see with this chart what I mean. It's above every indicator, right? It's above the moving averages, it's above the cloud, above the baseline, but above the conversion line. Now it's even above the orange line. So this chart just got really bullish really quickly. And we can see that if this weekly candle closes above this orange line, that would kind of be the first time ever, really, right? Besides this time right here, not ever. Like if you look in the past, right here, it was over there. But we can see the first time in a long time it got back to this level. And we can see how important that is. And if this week does close above it, then there would be a clear shot to the higher sixes and into the sevens. And eventually, where does the next level sit for CIFR? Well, the next level sits pretty high up, right? It sits up here at $64, $65, right? And we can see that would be an all-time high because the previous all-time high was right here at $15.39. So It's got a long ways to go because it just broke free of the orange level, right? So is it going to get to that next level anytime soon? Maybe not, right? In time, maybe it can get there at the end of 2025 or possibly a little bit further, right? But the one thing that we can see, this chart is clearly bullish, it's clearly breaking out, and we want to see this continuation into the Friday close, because if it just turns into a wick and closes below, then that would be not a good situation for a continuation higher. So Friday close is very important. So let's see, but so far so good for this CIFR mining. And next we have Iris Energy. So we can see each level. The orange level was important. It broke free, came back and back tested that orange level. And now we see IREN kind of at a resistance, right? So why did IREN underperform today? I think the Gann chart says it all. It's at resistance, right? It's still a very bullish chart, but it got rejected once, twice, tried to break above 3 times, and now it's starting to close back below the arc. So I believe it's 100% technical and nothing to do with any fundamentals about this stock at all. And when we add on the Ichimoku and the SMA here, we can see that it also is 100% bullish, right? Which is a really good thing. It's still very it's holding support very well, but it has the resistance of the Gann above it, and that resistance currently sits right now with the arc around 12, maybe 1270, and then the blue line sits around $14. So we have 2 levels of resistance, so it's not really clear skies ahead, even though it's above every indicator on the Ichimoku and it's above the SMAs as well, right? If we add the Bollinger Bands onto this one as well, we can see that it kind of got rejected by the top of the Bollinger Band up there. So that could lead to just more down to sideways until it's ready to break higher. So it could come back down here, retest the conversion line baseline, and it could even test this angle again, right? And if it went down this week to that angle, that would be around a $9. If it went next week, that would be maybe around like a mid to high nines, right? But I don't think it'll just go straight down just because we have the support of the baseline right here and the conversion line. So what I can really see is maybe price just like drifts sideways for a while until it's ready to touch the arc or the angle and then possibly break higher and higher. So this level is important, as we can see, the $14 level. And where does the next level sit? Well, the next level sits up here at $52 as well. So we can see it has some room to run. We can see this chart is very, very bullish, but it just got overextended pretty quickly. So it just needs a little time to cool off before price can go higher and higher. So I still like it a lot. It's just other charts are looking to break out, while this chart is having some resistance with the Gann square. And next we have Bitfarms, and Bitfarms on this Gann chart looks really, really nice. The orange level, super important. That bullish engulfing candle that closed above the orange level, and the angle just kept it going higher. And now this angle right here is very, very important, right? So we can see that it was a support zone and maybe a little bit of a resistance zone, but ultimately it's been support, and now it is still support again. And a couple weeks ago, this red doji candle did actually successfully back tested. So is it ready to continue higher and higher to the blue level again? You can see how important that blue level was in the past, right? It was right here, got rejected, rejected, tried to break above, and then it just broke down completely. So is it going to go back up to that blue level around 730? So let's put on the confluence of the Ichimoku and the SMAs here just to see. And it looks really good, right? It looks similar to Mara, actually. Really similar to Mara. How it held the 200-week moving average down there around 255. It held the conversion line. It almost went back and tested the bottom of the cloud, and we can see that the baseline, it's also breaking above, just like we saw in the Mara stock, right? So that baseline sits at 272. Price closed today at 277. So what would be really bullish is to see another weekly candle close back above this for a continuation back up to the previous highs over here in the 360, 370 zone. And once it can start closing weekly candles above this area, maybe above like 380 or so, then I would say it's got a clear shot up to the arc down here around 560s or so, maybe even 570s, 580s, and then ultimately back to the blue level where there's going to be some major resistance up here around 726 or 728, 730, right? Around that zone. So this chart is turning out to be really bullish, just like Mara. But again, I still am waiting for a weekly close to close back above this baseline here for that continuation higher and higher. But again, this chart is 100% bullish and nothing bearish about it right now at all. And next we have Bit Digital, and this chart also really nice. We can see that the orange level, very important, was support for a while. That was confirmation to move higher, right? So will it have more room to run? Well, the good news is this top arc used to be some resistance, right? Back here, resistance. Even back here, it was resistance, but it just went up to successfully test this angle again as resistance and then back down to test the line as support. So now it's breaking above the arc again, which used to be resistance. Now it's trying to flip it to support. So that is good. And if we add on the Ichimoku and the SMAs here, we can see that it's not 100% clear skies ahead, right? Even though it's above the cloud, it's above the arc, and above the conversion line and baseline, we can see the cloud here is still red. It has not flipped green yet, and we can see that there is some resistance with that 200-week moving average up above around 511 currently. So it is getting more and more bullish, right? I like it better than the RIOT stock, but we can see that there is some resistance above around $5. And that $5 level even actually coincides with this wick up here that went up to 527. So this zone, when you look to the left, there's resistance here, there's resistance here, and so on and so forth. So can it make its way up there this week? I think there's a possibility, but will it just break through all this resistance in one fell swoop? No, I don't think so. I think it'll just come up here maybe this week or next week or in the following weeks, probably get rejected, have some consolidation, and then possibly try to break free in the future. But the good developments I see is breaking out above the cloud and the arc. So what we could probably see is a successful back test of both the cloud and the arc in the coming weeks, right? Before things really break out higher and higher. So it's starting to look better and better, but it's not clear skies ahead yet. It's got some resistance before it makes its way back to that blue level, which ultimately sits around 1640, 1620, around that zone, which probably won't happen too soon, but possibly could happen by later next year as well to continue higher and higher. So good developments, just not ready to completely break out yet. And next we have TerraWolf. Woof, right? So this one is looking pretty good. Each level has been important. And right now, it's working on getting to the green level, right? It got to the orange level, then the blue level, and now it's going up to the green level here, which sits around $7. So it could keep going. There's a lot of green weekly candles in a row, but that doesn't mean much if there's no resistance above, right? And if we even look to the left of the chart, there really still is no resistance above. Maybe with these candles over here, could offer some resistance, but the target is around $7. And if we add on the SMA and the Ichimoku, we can see what else sits at that level. Well, the 200-week moving average sits at 715, right? More confluence that will be a bigger resistance zone. So even though this one is 100% bullish on all the indicators, right? Besides the 200-week, right? It still has this resistance above. So it maybe can move maybe one more dollar above. Right now it's at $6, so it can move up to 7, maybe 715. Maybe could even wick up to the arc here around like the high sevens, right? But it's probably going to get rejected around this zone. And once it gets rejected down this zone, it's probably going to go back to retest levels below. And the next level would be this angle down here, which could even sit around the $4 range, or depending on time, the $5 range, or even $6 range, right? If it goes back up to the 7. It just depends on time, how long it takes to get there, and how long it takes to consolidate to get to that support. So it's looking really good, almost 100% bullish, has that 200 week, just has a little more room to go to get to that level. But I like the other charts a little more that have less resistance up top, like Mara, maybe CLSK. They're looking pretty good because this one already had a very significant run, right? Very significant. How much of a percentage did that go from the bottom here? Yeah, it went up already a couple 100%. And going up here would be, yeah, like 260%. So I don't really recommend always chasing green candles because this is a good indication that it's going to run out of steam pretty soon. So choose the ones that have clear skies ahead. This one does have a little more room to run, but it doesn't really have clear skies ahead after the $7. And the last one is HUT 8. And we can see how symmetrical this has been, especially the orange level, the blue level, and this 45-degree angle here has been a super important support zone. And what do we see? Well, after it tested that 45, it just kept breaking out. And now we're back above the arc, which we saw was a previous resistance right here. And now it's breaking out. So does it have more room to run now that it's breaking out, or is there some resistance that we don't see? Well, let's see here. The SMA and the Ichimoku, and wow, yeah, the 200 SMA, it is breaking above. At the same time, it's breaking above the arc, it's breaking above the 200. So when we look at everything, and it's just turning green, right? You can see this leading span A cross above the leading span B, which is going to make this cloud start to turn green. So this chart is now 100% bullish with everything, right? So if this weekly candle closes above the 200 week, above this arc, then there should be some clear skies ahead to the top of this angle here, which we can see in the past was a good support and resistance zone. And that currently sits around $30, right? $30.58. So after that, what comes next? Well, then we have price and time. We have the blue arc with that angle, maybe in February of 2025, and that sits around $45, $46, right? And then after that, we have the blue level, which sits at $67 right there. So this chart is looking really, really bullish now, and especially if this weekly candle can close above these levels right here, then I can see a continuation higher and higher, because when we look at this, there's really clear skies ahead. There's no resistance indicators above here. The only resistance we have is this previous candle right here, which the high was 22.75. So that is the next resistance spot for it. And once it can close a weekly candle above that, that will be a higher high from here. And then there will be a lot of room to go higher and higher to the 30s, and then to the 40s, and then ultimately to the 60s. So this chart is looking really, really good, especially breaking above this 200-week moving average and the arc at the same time. So there you have it. Those are the miners. They're looking pretty good. Some are looking a lot better than others, but just choose the ones that have the clear skies ahead